Pat Smith, co-host of the Three-Man Front, WJOX 94.5 in Birmingham as well. And just right there at the center of the college football world, a guy we love having on the show, whatever you can get him. Pat, today was a day I think no one in college football, particularly in the SEC, thought would happen, in that Billy Napier is getting to come back for another year, but there are layers to this that make it make more sense than it doesn't. What was your kind of initial reaction to hearing this?
Well, you know, one thing's for sure is back in September, Scott Strickland was on the SEC Network, the athletics director, and he shocked the college football world. Matter of fact, he shocked his fan base when he came out and he said, I believe in Billy Napier. I believe in what he's doing with his football program. It's about patience. He's going to see this through. We're going to have a good football team. And everybody kind of scratched their head. And you're going, well, really? Does he really feel that way? And then when the announcement came out this morning, because it had been reported the last couple of weeks that, listen, if Billy Napier was going to be shown the door, then Scott Strickland was probably going to be shown the door, because Scott Strickland, he hired Dan Mullen, had to get rid of him. He hired Billy Napier. Not a lot of times in college athletics do you get a redo from an athletic director to be able to hire two guys, let alone a third guy that has failed in their job, especially as a college football coach. So once you heard that Scott Strickland was going to be safe, this announcement this morning made a whole heck of a lot more sense. One thing's for sure, Billy Napier has not put together the record that they expect in Gainesville, but the team has played extremely hard. The team has had to endure a ton of injuries. He is 1-10 in rivalry games. That's a number that's going to be hung around his neck, that's tough to get over. But he's 4-4 this year, and because he's got a quarterback named DJ Lagway, who probably, if he was still in the game this weekend, the previous weekend, they might have given Georgia a run for their money there in the fourth quarter, potentially maybe even pulling an upset. I think they like the trajectory of the team. He's going to be on the hot seat next year, but because of Scott Strickland's availability of coming back himself, it makes a lot more sense that they're going to give Napier at least one more shot.
You know, the other factor that I was just talking about this, Pat, is the Ben Sass situation there, where the university president out the door, a lot of controversy around it. So if you're an interim president and you're trying to decide what to do with the athletic director and then ultimately the head football coach, if you're all lame ducks, like, why not just, you know, like if they're all not going to be there in a year, you know, either way, if they're leaving the offices, then why not spend $40 million on a buyout of a coaching staff and get through and see where it goes?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and that's the thing, and it's crazy to think about. I mean, I know you're in Texas, and you guys are used to those odds. No big deal. Let's just write a check to Jimbo Fisher for $70 million and let him walk out the door. Well, at Florida, that's $26 million. That would have been the second highest payout in the history of college football. And as you just mentioned, they've got administration issues. They've got all this other stuff that's going on off the radar screen. Right now, Florida just needed to probably get another year underneath Billy Napier's belt. Let's see what's happening with the football program. He is recruiting decently, not for this signing class, but for the 2025 class. He's put together a pretty nice one so far. So that's why, from a monetary standpoint, and with the House settlement coming up, a lot of these athletic departments, you see, you know, probably Arkansas is going to give Sam Pitman another year. Auburn is not happy with Hugh Freeze, but are you really going to fire a guy after 2 years and have to pay him $20 million? A lot of these athletic departments have to have long conversations about that budget, especially now what they're going to have to do next year, having to pay players $20 to $23 million a year, part of your budget. That's tough for any athletic department.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other thing he has going for him is DJ Lagway.
Correct.
DJ Lagway likes him. Now, normally college players are not given this kind of power because they didn't have that kind of freedom. But now that DJ Lagway could decide tomorrow morning he's done with the Gators and be in the portal, and they wouldn't have him, his opinion becomes way more important, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, and that's what we're seeing across the board, whether it's a young five-star, freshman recruit that is playing, whether it's a quarterback or wide receiver, because we're seeing that at Auburn right now. Auburn had a fantastic recruiting class this last year, but they've only won 3 ball games. And then you start worrying about, okay, is this wide receiver going to be happy because we don't have a good quarterback? Is he going to get in the transfer portal? Is he going to stick around? All of a sudden, you're taking that input from that player. You literally have to walk into the football office every single day and re-recruit the guys that in the old days, you knew that they were going to be there at least 3 years or 4 years. If you give them another red shirt, maybe 5 years. So, yeah, that's where the quarterback Lagway, he's going to have a lot of power, just like every college athlete has now. If you're good, these coaches, they're going to be sweating it left and right, trying to figure out who's going to make them happy to make sure that those guys don't enter in the transfer portal, because we've seen it. It doesn't matter the school. Once that dam breaks, all of a sudden there's the persona or the idea that this program's in deep trouble and everybody's going to be heading to the door. So Lagway, make sure he's happy, then they feel like the rest of everybody will kind of fall in line.
Also, reasonably, who was there to get for them? Really?
The hot name that we've been hearing for months was Lane Kiffin. Well, everyone thought that Lane Kiffin would be sitting there undefeated right now, but instead he loses to Kentucky at home. Then he goes to LSU and he loses, and now it's a make-or-break game for Ole Miss this weekend against Georgia, which that's a tough task. He was the number one name on the list. And then all of a sudden after that, I mean, are you really going to kick the tires on James Franklin after you see what kind of big games he likes to coach in and lose at Penn State? He was in the SEC before, but he's not going to really get the fan base excited or recruits. Lane Kiffin was the hot name. That was the name that everybody said, you know what? They're going to come down to Gainesville. They're going to be undefeated. Ole Miss is, or the potential of only one loss against Georgia because they play at Florida in a couple of weeks. And they said that was going to be his job interview for the job. But instead now you've got Napier giving another year. And obviously Lane Kiffin's got his own problems in Oxford.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Another coach, I'm going to ask you another couple coaches. Sam Pitman, I think, today off the hot seat. Tomorrow that could be a different thing. But with Talon Green and the way that things have worked out, it might be a little bit reckless for them to get rid of him, wouldn't it?
Yes, no, I agree 100%. I love Sam. I know you guys have interviewed Sam plenty of times. He's just an outstanding individual, and he's a good football coach. Fayetteville's a very difficult place to win. And listen, Bobby Petrino has come in at least the first half of the season. They got that huge upset over Tennessee, which is going to go a very long way. But I'll just say this. You cannot give up. And I know it was Ole Miss and that type of Lane Kiffin offense, but you can't go into a game and give up 63 points and think that the fan base is going to be happy with your return. They've got to finish strong. They've got to finish competitively. I think ultimately Sam Pitman is back. But I said today on our radio show, I firmly believe going into next football season in the Southeastern Conference, you're going to have three coaches squarely on the hot seat. Hugh Freeze at Auburn, Sam Pitman at Arkansas, and obviously Billy Napier at Florida. Those three guys are going to be sweating big time once we get to SEC Media Days next year in Atlanta.
Yeah. Hugh Freeze is the other one I wanted to ask you about. The Auburn's not afraid to make a change in midstream. They're not. You know it all too well. And he has not been as advertised. Now, the recruiting class is there, but the results have not been on the field. If Deuce Knight had not flipped, would this be maybe a more dire situation for him?
Well, he's got a top 5 recruiting class. Brian Harston single-handedly destroyed recruiting at Auburn. The cupboard was not bare, but it was pretty lean. And so when Hugh came in and was able to sign a really good recruiting class, matter of fact, he signed more top-notch 5-stars out of the state of Alabama than Nick Saban and Kirby Smart did combined. That's how good that recruiting class was. But he went the cheap route. He did not go into the portal, did not get a quarterback. And you're seeing the results of an offense that scored 7 points at home against Vanderbilt. The other thing that a lot of people are getting nervous about Hugh Freeze, in his last 22 games as an SEC football coach, I'm talking about conference games. Obviously, that includes 2 years at Auburn and his remaining few years there at Ole Miss. He is 6-16 in this conference. He's lived off of beating Nick Saban twice. It has not come to fruition the last year and a half at Auburn. And Auburn people are getting a little bit nervous. But the good thing that they did this time with a coach's contract, unlike Gus Malzahn when they fired him, they had to pay Gus Malzahn literally $21.5 million, half of that within 30 days. When they got rid of Brian Harsin, it was $15.6 million, half of that 30 days within firing. They developed it a little bit different when they signed Hugh Freeze. Yes, Hugh owes about another $20 million on his deal, but that would be spread out, no 30 days and you get half your money. That would be spread out over the life of the contract. So Auburn literally would be taking a hit between $4.5 and $5 million a year, which is not a lot. I mean, again, that's a lot of money for any athletic department to sneeze at, but it beats having to pay somebody in 30 days, paying a big sum of money of 10 or 11 million like they did with Gus Malzahn. So they did set it up that way. So if all hell breaks loose again next year and they just don't see the improvement needed, they could stomach a potential buyout of him. It would just be spread out over a 4-year period.
Okay, CFP rankings this week. You're there right next to Tuscaloosa.
Yep.
Were even they surprised? We're like, oh, damn, a number 11.
Well, one thing's for sure. After the Georgia game, everybody was like, yeah, it's the same old Alabama. And then Vanderbilt happened. And then obviously Tennessee happened. A close game against South Carolina happened. So this is really a big game coming up against LSU. This is an elimination game for both programs if they want to continue to be in that conversation. I think Alabama fans they're getting over the shock. I think they're happy that they're still mentioned in the CFP. They're not settling by any stretch of the imagination, but they understand that if they win out, even though they might not get because of the tiebreakers for the SEC championship game, they would firmly be in the college football playoff. And that under year one with Kalen DeBoer would be a huge victory. Once again, not that Alabama fans are tempering their expectations because they're not, but it's a situation where you're seeing them at number 11 now. They understand if they beat LSU, they beat Oklahoma on the road, which is obviously doable now with the Oklahoma team that they have. And then you've got Auburn at home. Those are obviously 3 easily winnable games. If they can take care of business, then they're going to be okay in regards to the CFP.
Was there anything that surprised you about the CFP rankings?
Yeah, Penn State, no doubt. I mean, having Penn State at number 6 is ridiculous. With a 7-1 record, I know they would be the 8th seed. They're ranked 7, but they would have been the 8th seed if you break it down in the bracket. What have they done? They should have lost to Bowling Green at the beginning of the season. They cannot win a big game. Indiana would absolutely wax the floor with them. I don't buy it. I could see on a neutral field, I could see Boise State beating them. Heck, Boise State almost beat Oregon at Austin. Yeah, I just got no love for Penn State. I think the teams around them, whether it's Tennessee, Indiana, BYU, I think all of those 3 teams could pace Penn State any day of the week.
I totally agree with you. All right, real quick before we go, I want to read you from Message Board Geniuses some of the things that Florida fans have said. Okay. This is from SC Gator 15. Quote, champions of life vibes. Okay, from CH Fern.
Coach Jones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hope Lagway and others go to play for a real program, one that can not only get them to the playoffs, but will get them ready for the NFL. Dan Mullins Taylor, hotty toddy. I hope UF loses every game. So long he is here, heads should roll.
Well, again, it goes back to what we said before at the beginning of this interview. As long as you have the guy that hired him, he ain't going to fire him, because if he fires him, he's going to admit once again that he made a very, very bad call. I think when they make a change, they're going to make a sweep. And I'm talking about the AD and the head coach. Just give them until next year. Yeah, I mean, I know fans don't want to hear that, but you have to look at the economics of the game that we're now experiencing. And these athletic departments, listen, Greg Byrne, the athletic director at Alabama, Alabama was a Final Four team last year. And, of course, you guys in Waco, man, you've got an unbelievable facility there for the Baylor Bears that was been built the last couple of years. Alabama has been in need of a new arena for about 25 years. They just went to the Final Four. And, of course, everybody's talking about they need to build a new arena for natives. They need to do this. They need to do that. And finally, the AD finally came out and said, look, guys, you got to understand, there's not some gold bar pit underneath Coleman Coliseum or Bryant-Denny Stadium. I know we spend a lot of money here, but at some point in time, we just can't be printing this stuff. And a lot of fans just forget about that, because at some point in time, it's going to come to roost, and these athletic departments are going to have to be fiscally responsible. And I think that's what you're seeing, and that's what Florida is doing right now.
Absolutely. Pat, thank you so much for hopping on. We'll talk to you again soon.
Always enjoy it. Have a good time, guys.
That's Pat Smith, three-man front, Birmingham Radio. Love having him on. Love it, love it, love it.